Welcome to the BXG Podcast, the podcast where pop culture and nerd culture meet.
You think it's just going to be barbecue sauce?
Because if you actually read those books, it's just gobbledygook.
I really think clothes should be mandatory.
Speaking of Star Wars,
Captain America.
trailer reaction video. Good evening. Good afternoon, good evening, good night. You're probably watching this in the morning because that's when we'll post. But we are recording in the evening, and this is a BXG production, BXG review of House of the Dragon, episode 8.
It's episode 8.
Yeah, episode 8. I can't. It's just like I get confused because the other show is only 8 episodes, but this is 10.
Right.
House of Dragon episode 8. Lord Corlys Valerion has sustained a potentially mortal wound, and there is to be the heir of his house at Driftmark is to be contested. We jump forward in time again. The kids are grown up now. Aemond looks like a badass pirate with that eye patch.
He does. Dressed
in all black. He does look like a badass, and he's an annoying little prick.
He does, yeah.
He does look like a badass. With the long white hair and everything. The union of Daemon and Rhaenyra has brought us several more children into the fold. But the contention is over whether or not Lord Corlys's brother should be the rightful heir, or if it should be as planned, Rhaenyra and Laenor's son, and so on and so forth. That ends pretty quickly after Sir Valerian levies some unfortunate accusations that leaves him quite split. A split decision, some would say.
Yes.
Meanwhile, the king is just this poor guy. He's just been through it, and he's got to wear a cool gold Phantom of the Opera mask now because one of his eyes is fucking just gone. And there's a very emotional scene at the dinner table where they all like angrily toast each other, and then he dies at the end. So there's that. Do we miss anything?
No, I think we got it. Other than general bastards.
Yeah,
bastards.
That was pretty intense.
That was a great scene. This was a Patty. I hope I'm saying Considine. Considine. I think it's Patty Considine. Let me double check.
Ooh, yeah.
Patty George Considine. Yeah, that's okay. Patrick. This was that we're gunning for that Emmy episode. Yeah. And which is for the most part fine. It was sometimes a little over the top, which happens when you're just like, this is your reel. This is what you're putting in. Yeah. Because an Emmy's never based off the whole season. They send in one show, and this is that show.
Right.
So I thought like all that stuff was crazy intense. This is when I sent you a text about like, I wish that one of these shows we watched was just like funny. Like the shows are like lighthearted, like She-Hulk is like lighthearted, but it's not necessarily like funny, because I was just like, I just finished, the Rings of Power, which just bums me out. And then to go to this show, which is like good, but bums you out in a different way because it's just like everyone is just completely eviscerated. And but then this guy just dies at the end. King is just boom. That's it. So I thought that was actually like a cool storyline that could have went maybe too far. And it felt like every time that seemed like it could have been slightly overreacting or overacting, they reacted in a way to pull it back in. And so I never felt, there was moments where I'm like, well, here we go. And then they would reel it back in, and then he dies. And it's like, that's the ultimate reel it back in. Because this is it. You can't. And so I really like that. I thought I thought the dinner party, or just dinner, I don't know, dinner party, but when they were just all like being mean to each other was hilarious. It was like imagining going to like you're like a you're going somehow, you're dating somebody and you go to their party, you go to their like Thanksgiving dinner, and the whole family like hates everyone, and you're just kind of there watching it, and you're like, I'm just gonna drink my beer and stay off and watch football and just let everybody else argue. And that's what it felt like. I was like that actually made me laugh in like the uncomfortable way of like that family. It wasn't funny. It was just like, this is hilarious because it's so uncomfortable. And I love that. I thought it was a really good episode. I just thought like if there's no action, there's like nothing other than, a couple.
Cool, man. That was pretty wild. So I don't even know.
The slices.
I had the IMDb up, but Lord Corliss's brother, who contests the seat, and then he just lets it all loose. He says what everybody's been thinking and wants to say.
Yeah, he's your crazy uncle.
Bastard! And then Damon cuts his. It was such a weird cut. I'll have your tongue for that. And then he cuts it right over the top of the tongue. He's like,
yeah.
And that was wild.
The power move. I don't know if I've ever seen that.
A head cut like that?
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen that.
Yeah, I can't say that I have. Not in like a live action thing, in like different
or in
like,
person.
Well, that too. I've never seen anyone's head cut in half in person.
I've never seen anyone's head cut off in person either.
It's weird. I don't like it.
Yeah. Hang on. Moving on.
Not at all.
Moving on. No. What did you think, Brent? I thought this was a really strong episode. I like episodes that don't have dragons. I will say I do. You've kind of like made me appreciate just them talking, as long as they're talking.
Yeah, and I should say, and I texted you this, that I was remiss. I challenged your criticism last week that there was so much just staring and no one talking in that episode. And then when I watched it back with my wife, because she didn't watch it at the same time as me, that funeral scene, man,
it's rough.
It's like 10 minutes long and there's only like 4 lines of dialogue.
Yeah, that was rough. And I rewatched after you said that just to be like, was it as bad as I thought? Like, then I was like, maybe I've conditioned Brent in a different way. And I was like, no, I was right. Okay, good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was just like, what in the hell?
Somebody accidentally got into the Rings of Power script room.
It wasn't even that. It was just like, I'll tell you one thing about this that I've come to appreciate is the mood and emotions that Matt Smith can convey with just his face, because he's got that shitty grin.
Yeah.
And he just knows when to like laugh or chuckle at the wrong time and make things so much more uncomfortable. And I saw it again. And like I said, last week's episode, I rewatched it pretty recently, and this episode as well. Even in this episode, he conveys this sort of, just with his face, he conveys this sort of guilt over the relationship that he's had with his brother, that they were at odds, and now he sees him the way that he sees him. He's basically a leper.
Right.
And you could tell that there's like guilt, like at least a little bit of guilt that's weighing on him. And at the beginning of the series, we joked about how with the long blonde hair that he just looks like grotesque.
Yes.
But I've come to really appreciate him, and I would say none of the characters in this are super likable. And I have struggled with that a little bit here and there, because there are characters in the original Game of Thrones that you root for. You root for Jon, you root for Arya, you root for Robb when he's running around, you root for Daenerys before she makes a heel turn. You root for Tyrion because he's hilarious, right?
Sure.
you root for Braun for the same reason, because him and Tyrion have that relationship, but there's really nobody to really root for in this. It's like everybody's just kind of sleazy. And I think the Hand says it very well at the end of the previous episode, in which he says, we play a dirty game. And I think that this show has actually exemplified that more than Game of Thrones did, because this is so much palace intrigue. It's so much backstabbing. It's so much maneuvering. Whereas I felt like with Game of Thrones, like thinking about it in hindsight, everything's kind of out in front of you. You know
Right.
what I mean? The moves are all out in front of you, but this is really like political intrigue, move, counter move. It's more chess, I think,
It's
than
West
the
Wing
original.
circa whenever.
Yeah, but I feel like Damon has kind of morphed into that character who he's like, he's kind of a shitty dude, but he's really the only one to kind of root for in this.
Yeah, he's the most likable. It's so weird to say this, because like when he's the most likable character in this show, that tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah,
I think, really, and that's a great point. I think that's it. It's just that he's, like you said, he's got that shit-eating grin on his face all the time, and it's like, if that guy, if in like real life, if you were like in your 20s and that guy gives you that look,
oh, you just want to punch him.
You just want to punch him right in the face. You might just do it. You might just punch him right in the face. Like, what are you doing? And he looks at you again, and he like buys you a beer, and you just smash the beer over his head, because you're just like, quit looking at me like that. Just that, because he makes you angry, but then you get it at the same time. No, this show's grown on me a lot. The last two episodes, because of the dialogue, have like really. This episode was just dialogue, like I said, and I thought it was a max. Yeah, minus that. But even that involved the tongue. So I guess this is probably the episode they sent in for their Emmy for writing too. I mean, I really do. I think so.
I would say, and I just want to actually check on something really quick, but as we kind of move into the next phase, or the last couple episodes here, there's a tradition with HBO and specifically the Game of Thrones series where the 9th episode is always that's the barn burner. That was when Ned Stark lost his head. That's when Battle of the Bastards, the Red Wedding, just to name a few. But I just wanted to look here. This is via IGN, but also by way of Entertainment Weekly. The emotional scene where a weakened Viserys is helped to the throne by his estranged brother, son-in-law, Daemon, was instantly popular among the creators of the show, and one that happened by accident during rehearsal. And this is one of the directors speaking, quote, "When we were shooting that, I think the rehearsal again, the first day, the crown fell off Patty's head and Matt picked it up and we just kept going. We didn't stop filming." There was a discovery there of this moment. And so that's kind of interesting. You always like to hear about like some of the different things that are improvised, whether they be in movies or, TV shows like this. I know famously Heath Ledger clapping along with the rest of the people in The Dark Knight whenever Commissioner Gordon is named commissioner. Famously improvised. And it just adds a layer of creepiness to that character. But I think that, that's a cool moment. And I think again, that kind of conveyed that sort of like heavy-hearted, guilty conscience on Daemon towards his brother. But what did you think of his like half Phantom of the Opera mask?
Sick looking. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, if people out there didn't have a Halloween costume already ready, there you go.
Yeah, or badass pirate.
Or badass pirate.
Yeah.
It was so sick. I was just like, I'm watching this on my phone, and I'm like, oh man, I got to rewatch some of these scenes with just that on my TV, which I did because that's so cool. It was so cool. It was unnecessarily cool looking. That was the thing. Like they could have just made it just a normal thing, and they said like, no, we got to make this look badass because the king's going out.
So
Was this a tribute to Queen Elizabeth? Did they know? Was this a tribute?
No, they didn't.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay.
I think that The King is Dead. There's 2 episodes left. The 9th episode, historically in Game of Thrones, has been, all bets are off.
Bloodshed.
So I think that next week there's been so much tension building and building and building since the first really big time jump. And I just think next week's episode is just going to be powder keg, and there's going to be blood everywhere. And
get your popcorn ready.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I can't I'm very excited for the next episode. And I think that everything's been building towards this. And I think that this is that magic that they had with the first few seasons of Game of Thrones, where it was like edge of your seat. Who's going to die next? Intrigue. Could be anyone. Seemingly in the first couple of seasons, no one had plot armor. I mean, obviously that got kind of disproven down the line, but yeah, I think we're in for a wild ride, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Me too.
So, if you like our review, leave us a like. You can also subscribe and enter yourself into a chance to win a $25 gift card. And what are you doing?
You putting a ticket in the ballot to enter yourself?
And
657 jelly beans.
God, you're breaking me. Subscribe, share, and if you did our job well, go ahead and ring the bell. Thank you for watching, listening, etc. Take care, friends. Bye-bye.
Thank you.